So what do you know about this $8 million donation? Hey, Dad, tell us.
I'm going to go full blow Knicks here. They've got it. No, Borky, you kind of alluded to it, and this is the case. Because you're wondering, like, why is it not straight to the Bulldog Initiative? This is a move for the future. I think we're all aware, or at least we can all make the what feels like a very logical assumption that the time is coming soon with revenue sharing, with what's going on in Congress, that NIL is going to fall under the university's purview. And so this is the first step for Mississippi State to be able to run NIL as a university. But at the same time, what you're saying about can that money be doled out now? No, it's not going to anybody on Mississippi State's defense for 2025. No, this is a move for the future for Mississippi State to put a lot of stuff at ease about the burden of revenue sharing that is about to hit every university in this country.
So a preemptive.
Yes, preemptive is the word I heard over and over again.
Say that last part. NIL, we know it appears as if it's going to fall under the purview of the university.
Correct.
Or its foundation.
Correct.
There will be a role. It all can be from the same pile of money.
Right.
And then there's the revenue sharing piece as well. So is this money earmarked to go toward the revenue sharing piece or NIL, or just there's one big pot of money?
It's one big pot of money from what I can gather. And that, the Mississippi State will dole it out as they see fit when the time comes. So
Gotcha.
I know a lot of people see that and they go, why not to the Bulldog Initiative? And did they actually really help NIL? And if you saw, we were just talking about him, Charlie Winfield's reaction to this event on Twitter today, he was very upfront that this was a huge, huge thing for Mississippi State's NIL future. Just a massive donation to Mississippi State, and it will benefit the student athlete. I mean, that's the way the state's going to put it, right? When we talk to Zach Selman later, it's going to benefit the student athlete at Mississippi State. That, to me, is code word for NIL.
Yeah. So I'm trying to decide where to start on this. We know you are a locked-in football audience, but we also know that you come and you go, and it's more our job to try and read and understand every piece of information that comes out as it pertains to the college athletics landscape, and then try to get that to you. And I feel like we've talked about this, but it's in the past, and I'm even having to kind of stop and think about, okay, where are we right now? And so let's try to explain what we think is coming. And the reason I say think, a month ago I would have said what is coming, but that was when it appeared that we were on a straight line approval of the House versus NCAA settlement. Mm-hmm. And so the negotiated settlement was going to create roster limits for sports. It was going to eliminate the walk-on piece, and it was going to give schools the ability to fully fund scholarships for as many roster spots as exist, up to as many roster spots as exist for a given sport. Football was going to be 105, currently at 85. I think it was 105, 103.
I believe that's correct.
I think 105 was the number. So if a school is inclined to do so, they can fully fund an additional 25 scholarships, but you are not required to fund all 20 of those. Baseball roster sizes were going to be 32. Does that sound right?
That sounds correct, yeah.
Yep.
And if I'm off by a number or two, forgive me. Schools will be allowed to fund up to 32 full scholarships, but you cannot have any more than 32 players on your roster. We know that baseball currently is at 11.7 scholarships. And so if you go to the full 32, you're talking about adding a lot of expense to your baseball budget. You might say, well, we're going to fund 22 full baseball scholarships, so we're going to double that 11.7, give or take, and then we're going to spread that money out among the players on the roster. We're going to give some full scholarships. We're going to give some partial, but you can do that as you wish. You just can't go over 32. So there's a reason I spell all of that out. So just take that and kind of set it to the side for a second, and then know that also we have this revenue sharing piece. And there was a formula, and I'm not going to try to figure out and explain what the formula was right now and how they came up with it. But basically, up to $15 million per year could be shared with the athletes at a school at the Power 5 level, Power 4 level. And the majority of that money was expected to go to football and men's basketball, like 75% of it. All right, now let's go back and pick up the other part with the expanded scholarship rosters. Of that $15 million that schools are going to be required to spend in terms of revenue sharing, if they opt into this Power 4 grouping, a portion of the money that they spend for new scholarships, so going from the old limits to the new limits, can be deducted from the amount of money that they have to spend as part of the agreed upon settlement. And so that $15 or $20 million number could come down to $17.5 million or $13.5 million, depending on which big number you're operating off of. And then some of the Austin money that you're spending right now, some of that can come out. But the bottom line is you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 to $20 million additional money beyond what you're spending now, money that has to be paid out, that has to come from somewhere. And then you have the possibility and probability of NIL money being spent on top of that revenue sharing money that's going to student athletes. And so when Haydad says it all goes into one pile, that makes a lot of sense. Whether it's spread out over multiple years or it's a single donation, that $8 million is a heck of a start toward $25 million that you're going to need to fund your revenue sharing piece and pay NIL money.
You know, we got a text about it too, and I had so many questions and that's why I asked here, because I did not know what this money was going to be for. And then so the next question is, well, then, I mean, we're talking years later. Not necessarily. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Departments have been preparing for revenue sharing to begin by fall of 25.
Yeah.
You know, a year from now. So, you know, sometimes a year feels like forever. It's really not. So if they are able to iron out the final details of this settlement, then it's here. And they're very close to the finish line. They're not done yet, but like the judge rejected a couple of things. It was like NCAA enforcement stuff is what the judge was like, no, you're not doing that. Nope. You're not capping their income. You're not doing it. So get rid of that and then I'll sign it, basically is how that went. But when they're done, it's here. So even though it feels like, well, why can't we use this money right now, is a fair question, but it's the way they're setting it up. It's not like it's going to be sitting in an account for half a decade.
Yeah, and I mean, this is off in the weeds, so forgive me. We don't know if the donor is making a single donation, if they are spreading the donation out over multiple years. I think the initial news release referred to it as a pledge. I think that's what I read. You know, if you're the donor and you're going to pay out over years, you get to keep the majority of your money and allow it to continue to grow and interest and compound and all of that stuff. And frankly, it costs you less than if you just write a check for $8 million. Though on the other side, Mississippi State would be like, yeah, if you want to go ahead and give us the $8 million, even if it's a year or two, we can use it. Well, hey, you just plop that thing. I mean, be as conservative as you want to be, and 5% on $8 million is another $400,000, right? That's real money. If you want to get a little more aggressive than that and try to return 10% on it, I suppose you can. Anyway, and I don't know that the structure of it really matters. What does matter? I thought this was a great text. Let's see here. It was the gist of, I didn't have Mississippi State getting blown out on the football field, picking up 2 high-level recruits, getting a basketball recruit, and an $8 million donation in the same week on my bingo card.
Nothing motivates people sometimes like a loss.
So do you think that this had been in the works for a while, or was this all right, you guys have been talking to me, and
it
here
had been
it
in
is.
the works, but I would tell you, I think Sunday or Saturday expedited things.
Really?
Yes.
Borky, I'm sure there are exceptions to this. I'm sure there are people who have so much money that they just call up an organization and say, hey, here's $8 million. But generally speaking, from kind of having friends that work in fundraising, in whether it's college athletics or universities or, nonprofits, whatever, those gifts like that are usually worked out over a long period of time. Mm-hmm. Like, there are a lot of meetings and a lot of – because you got to make the ask. I don't care how generous a person is. It's rare that somebody just randomly comes up to you and says, you know what, I'd like to make a donation. How does $8 million sound? I mean, that is a relationship that likely has been fostered over time. We know it was an existing donor to the university, and probably there had been some high-level conversations along the way about, hey, we would like for you to think about a transformational gift. Your interest is in athletics, clearly. We'd like to talk about that when you're ready. I don't know. It could have been completely random. It could have been somebody that picked up the phone and said, you know what? This isn't working anymore. How much do you need? Okay, well, I can't do that, but here's what I can do. I don't know.
We got another message, too. And morally, you are spot on. He says, $8 million could be better in veterinary, engineering, or other courses of study. Buying athletes should not be allowed and illegal. I disagree completely with the illegal part because this is America and you should be able to make money doing however you want. But like from a moral perspective, of course, veterinary students will provide a service to society more than a football player will, because we need vets. We don't need football. But what successful football does to universities extends far beyond what an $8 million gift would be to the veterinary department. We talk about it all the time, but the difference in the University of Alabama academically from the time Nick Saban took over, from the time he retired, it's a totally different institution. They have better academic programs than they had before. They have more money for those programs than they've ever had before. The campus has expanded like crazy. You're seeing a similar phenomenon happen in Oxford right now. The attention, the enrollment, the applications because of winning football, what that does academically, it's a game changer for a university. So yes, veterinary students are more important to society than football players. Engineers are more important to society than football players. But what the football players can do to the veterinary and engineering students, it's indescribable.
And also, as Donald Oxford points out, just earlier this year, Mississippi State received a $100 million donation that was entirely for academics. Not one penny of it went to athletics. So it's not like academics is being ignored at Mississippi State.
Yeah, but hey, Dad, everything you said I agree with. Borky, everything you said I agree with.
I would hope so, because it was all facts.
I have a fundamental problem with telling people what to do with their money.
Yeah.
In the same way that we've kind of shied away from telling you, hey, you got to go fill it up. You got to go fill up the stadium. Hey, you got to go donate. No, you have the opportunity to do that if it's what you want to do with your money. You get out of bed in the morning, you go to work, you provide for your family, whatever expendable income you have, it's you and your spouse and maybe your children's decision on how that money gets spent. And if it's to go to a ball game and you got $1,200 this month that is set aside as expendable income, and that's what brings joy to you and your family, go for it. But you know what? If you say it's too expensive to go to a ball game, I'd rather go camping in North Georgia this weekend. Go for it. Do what you want to do with your money. But the idea of someone saying it's ridiculous that they're giving $8 million to athletics. Who are you to judge somebody for their charitable philanthropic donation? That is the most, I don't know if condescending is the right word, or arrogant or judgmental. It's like, who are you to say to someone else, you shouldn't do that. You should do for this. How about you do what you think is right for you and your family and support the causes that you believe are important, and I'll do that. Like Jane and I have had that conversation. We have literally sat down and said, all right, we have a limited amount of money that we can do charitable things with. Where's that going to go? Well, okay, we know some of it is going to go to church. And then where's it going to go after that? What's important to us? Well, for us, it's children's organizations. And so there are 2 or 3 that we support. And it doesn't mean that we think the Wounded Warriors Project is a bad deal. But you might look and say, well, Richard, that children's hospital's got plenty of money. Why don't you give it to this? Well, no. I'll make the decision with my wife on what is important to me and us on where I just like, I don't even know how you type that message and say what you said. Hey.
Richard's budget, $1,000 a month for power, $500 a month for cable and internet, $25,000 a month for Ford F-150s.
A month?
Yeah,
Man, if I had that kind of a budget every month for Ford F-150s, I'd have like 7 of them. I wouldn't keep trading them in. I'd just
only
keep
have
them.
Instead of having 5.
I have 1. Thank you very much. And hopefully next year I'll have a different one. A few more months till we do that. Oh, gracious. Back with you. Sorry, that felt very soapboxy. I didn't intend for it to be.
Anyway, yeah, $8 million to Mississippi State football. That's awesome.
We'll
Long story short.
Sports Talk Mississippi.